And Roman will be presenting an advanced speech. It's actually a panel called Facilitating Discussions, 20 to 30 minutes. The speech title is Evaluating Effectively. Please welcome Roman, Evaluating Effectively.
Last weekend, our Canadian Thanksgiving, my in-laws were in town, and we had to do something with our in-laws to keep them preoccupied. My wife goes, let's go see a movie. She picked a romantic comedy. Not one of my favorites. Hector in Search of Happiness. You probably not have heard of it. It's not one of those big name movies. But it was, well, let's say it was interesting. The short synopsis of this movie is a psychiatrist in London is not connecting with his patients. And so he goes off into the world to find happiness. What is the true meaning of happiness? And so off to Shanghai and to Africa and California. And on the way to California, on the plane, he's been summoned, because he's an MD, to help with a patient who's suffering. The person had a brain tumor removed and is in pain. Finds out that this woman is returning to California and will pass away, so she wants to return to her family. He takes over, tells the pilot to lower the altitude, and brings the woman to the first class, soothes her, and talks quietly with her. At the end, when they're about to part, she brings him closer, and she says, listening is loving. Listening is loving. Wow! That's the whole purpose of my speech today. Evaluation. It's loving. SFEAT. We are lovers. Advanced lovers. And so it is that how can we improve in our capabilities of listening to other speakers that this project and the panel I'm going to ask to come up and join me in a moment will be discussing. Abraham Lincoln himself said, it's okay to criticize someone as long as you can help them with your heart. And Ralph Smedley, in 1936, published a brochure, called it Constructive Criticism. And thereafter, he published a manual and changed the title to Speech Evaluation. So we don't criticize, and we've moved away from just the logical thinking critical to using our heart and to love the other person when you're giving their evaluation. So is evaluations a science or an art? Well, evaluations are, we can learn how to evaluate and evaluate better. So it assumes that there's a process and a way to follow, so it would be like a science. But there's also a huge component of the art in it. And so that's what we're going to explore today. We all benefit from hearing a good evaluation of our own speech. That's how we progress to the next level, which we all aspire to do in an advanced club like ours. But we also, after we've learned how to evaluate, can take that skill out into the real world. And people who can advance their careers very quickly are those who can stay grounded, stay logical, and be able to reflect what the other people are doing around them and give them good, concrete evaluations. So let's explore evaluations from three perspectives tonight. The tone. If you get a harsh evaluation, you're likely to go home upset, not really thinking about coming back. If an evaluation is a whitewash, very simple and superficial, the rest of the members will get frustrated and will start losing interest in the club. So to look at evaluations from the tone perspective, I'm going to ask Louis to come up, and he'll provide us a prepared speech and review the tone of an evaluation. Our second panelist will look at content. And we talk about what are the strengths of people and how can they improve. But is there something we can do that's more about content in order for us to raise our level of evaluations? And Danielle has agreed to do that component of the workshop. And our third component that we're going to look at today is sensitivity. We all come up to the front and experience some level of anxiety. Some, like Al, maybe less than others. But no matter how hard your heart is, there's going to be a level of anxiety. And some of us feel that anxiety more than others. Are we ready to listen carefully to a person who is anxious and give them evaluations that mirrors their level of anxiety? And Marilyn has agreed to speak to us about her experiences of anxiety and sensitivity around evaluations and speaking. So if the three panelists can please join me in the order of speaking. Louis, Danielle, and everyone please. The way this is going to work is they're going to give a prepared 3-minute speech, and I want you to listen very carefully, because after they're finished, we're going to have a Q&A, and you're going to have an opportunity to ask the panelists each a question. So write your questions down as you hear them, and we'll return to you in 12 minutes. Louis Rogers is a champion of table topics. Last year he won. I was very impressed. I was there and witnessed it. He was incredible. What was even more impressive for me was in the spring conference, he explained how he did it. And his foresight, his ideas, and his preparation shared with the Toastmaster family how to win a table topics contest. And so today I hope he'll share with us some ideas of how to prepare your tone in giving evaluations. Luke.
Tone for me it's difficult, because I come to Canada, I speak English, but I don't speak English the same as everybody else here. I came to Canada coming from a country where sarcasm and wit is a means of communication. It's actually it's in terms of endearment. And then I come to North America and people hate me because my tone is so sarcastic. So I have to work on that pretty much on a daily basis. So when it comes to evaluations, tone becomes really important to me. It could be when I'm evaluating my girlfriend or she's evaluating me. It can be people I meet in the street. Just yesterday, I was in a coffee shop and I didn't realize, I skipped the queue, there was somebody in front of me, somebody goes, please, next person, so I stepped up. The person in front of me, angry, aggressive tone. I cannot tell you what the words were, but I know what the tone was. My natural instinct was I wanted to slap that person. Did I listen to what they said? Did I mean anything by skipping? I didn't mean to. And that's the problem that we have when we do evaluations. When you start with an aggressive tone, or an incorrect tone, then we instinctively become defensive. I've often seen it where people give positive feedback in a very neutral or subdued tone. And the feeling when you get that is, it's being dismissed. Oh, it was wonderful how you did that, but. So, and also, it's important for a club like us that we have that. Because we miss some of the positives that we have. And we all know each other, so we tend to be dismissive. We tend to make fun of each other. But our guests don't always know that. They don't understand the environment that we come from. So what might seem like a funny joke can appear to a guest as being quite harsh. But we don't have time to explain to those people because they haven't come for coffee with us. They don't know us. All they see is a harsh tone to somebody that was sitting there. But when you give positive feedback or negative in the correct tone, or a tone that is more neutral, then people might actually open up and listen and the others can build. Because we all know that in our club we want to nurture and advance people. But when you give the wrong tone, all you end up with is negativity and quite often aggression or just glibness from the other people or guests that we have. So I say, let's get the tone right.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Our next topic is content. Danielle Thibodeau, our past president, the current past president and treasurer of our club, has been on the executive for the last 3 years and is one of the original charter members. She has a passion for Toastmasters. And we're fortunate that that passion is reflected in keeping our club going. So she understands the purpose, the goal, the benefits of Toastmasters. And so doing, she's going to share with us what she thinks is a way to take our evaluations forward.
When you join Toastmasters, it becomes clear very quickly that getting feedback to the speaker is the cornerstone of the education program. There's no question about that. And personally, I always say that feedback, giving feedback and receiving feedback is probably the most marketable, easily accessible skill that you can get in a Toastmasters meeting. And by that I mean that it gives traction to your career almost immediately. Because I'll start with why, how, and the what. So the why, receiving feedback accelerate or gives you traction in your career. There are 3 things. The list is more exhaustive than that, but I thought of 3 on top of my head. One is that it's obvious, it accelerates your own learning. The next thing is that if you're taking a new role and you're used to receiving feedback, you'll adapt to new roles more quickly. And the third one, and sometimes I don't even realize, but it happens, I know it happens to me all the time, and since I joined Toastmasters, this has accelerated my learning, is that it changes how other people see you. Because if they feel that you're open to receiving some feedback and you actually act on their suggestion, they will think that you're more competent, even if you're not. Why should you want to give some feedback? It's when you want to give back. You live all this life, you had all this learning, and now you want to give back. You want to support, you want to improve others. It also helps you sharpen your own skills, your listening skills, and also giving feedback is one of the most marketable skills that a manager can have to have a team that works very, very well. I want to talk about how to receive the feedback. Now, how to receive the feedback, something that I'm not very good at is to shut up. Just keep your mouth. You're receiving feedback, open your ears. It's a gift that you're getting. So open your ears and shut up and just be open. Even if you don't agree with the feedback, there might be a gem in there, and if you don't shut up, you're going to miss it. When you give feedback, tell people the truth, but in a nice way, in a way that they are prepared to receive it. And that takes practice, and this is why we are all here. We're telling the truth, but in a way that person is able to receive it. The ultimate goal is that the speaker can't wait to give that speech again. That's what we want to do. There are basically 2 needs that the speaker has. One is to learn and grow, and the other one, more important than the first one, is to feel accepted, respected, now, the way they are now. I could have given you a list of things that you can evaluate: the tone, the pitch, the voice, the volume, the delivery, the gestures, but you can all find that information. What I want to tell the speakers is that this is a contract between the speaker and the evaluator, and you're in charge. You decide what kind of evaluation you want. Do you want to have a Dragon's Den evaluation? Or do you want to have a more balanced evaluation? It's up to you. I personally prefer that one. If I had time, I would explain the history of the Dragon's Den evaluation in this club. Maybe some other time, maybe we'll make a speech out of it. All I can say is, if you give a speech, be kind. Make sure that listening is loving. Make sure that it comes from a loving place. You really want that person to get better. Make sure that the suggestions are within their reach. Because if it's too far advanced, they will shut down. They will not want to do that speech again. And one of the best techniques I've observed in the best evaluators, and one that I try to leverage as much as possible, is to find the strength in a speech and leverage that strength so that it can help with perhaps a perceived weakness. And this applies for general, like an evaluation, but it also applies for our round-robin evaluation.
Thank you very much. Our third topic tonight is sensitivity. And Marilyn Dershowitz comes to us with a CC, has been a member of Toastmasters for 9 years, and has written a book, The Brutal Truth. And her organization, Brutal Truth, looks at workshop bullying and tries to address what we can do to change our cultural morals around bullying and what we do as far as power in our workplace. So there's no better expert to sensitivity than Marilyn on this topic. Please welcome Marilyn.
Thank you for inviting me to this panel, Roman, and I will speak briefly on sensitivity. There are general problems we all struggle with public speaking. It is known as a source of fear and anxiety. The fear is called glossophobia. Self-image and self-esteem are at risk. People fear looking foolish and being a failure. And this is because it might lead to loss of income, position, or status. Individuals have different levels of sensitivity and various symptoms. One could say they fall somewhere along a continuum. In my case, I have post-traumatic stress disorder, and this brings forth different and extreme symptoms for all sorts of activities in life, not just speaking. However, there are triggers right within speaking, so managing or overcoming it is extremely challenging. For example, I have difficulty with memory and retrieving information. Everyone has roadblocks and hindrances in life, and we just don't always know the details. Consider the shy extrovert, cool, calm, collected sort, whose actually insides are churning. And there are many famous people who struggle with fear of speaking. My favorite example is King George VI, the Queen's father. He developed a stutter from extreme abuse as a child, but with support and training from Lionel, he overcame to give speeches to his country and to the world. I suggest you watch the movie, The King's Speech. It shows just how challenging it is to overcome and the importance of the support. Yes, the role of the evaluator is very important. It is a role of support. So, demonstrate a listening that conveys mutual understanding, respect, and trust. Recognize individuals and situations that might be more sensitive, such as the first-time speaker in the club. Additional support may be given by asking afterwards if there was anything they might have said or done differently. There's more to share, including things that the sensitive speaker might do to move through these challenges, but I will have to leave that for another day. I am sincerely grateful that I had this opportunity to speak and for all the support I get from SFEAT. It comes in so many different ways. I realize I will stumble along the way in spite of all my efforts because I am learning. But with your awareness, support, and sensitivity, I can speak confidently. And remember, how you use sensitivity positively in the club can be used outside the club as well. Thank you.
Excellent. So those are our panel of experts, tone, content, and sensitivity. And now I'm going to open the floor to questions. Be brief, one question to one panelist, and give time for the panelists to respond with their replies. And how much time do we have left?
We went over about 5 minutes,
Okay.
so should we limit the
Yes.
Q&A to 7 minutes?
7 minutes. So we have 7 minutes, so that's about 7 questions. So do we have a first question from the floor? While you're thinking of a question, I'll ask Louis a question. Is an interruption by other members of SFEAT during a round robin, for example, something that's welcome, or is that something that can influence the tone of the evaluation and maybe even disrupt the entire process? So whether it's a comment, a retort, a rebuttal, a joke, what's your view on
Often when you get a reaction from somebody, the tone can be contradictory to what the person is saying. There are moments sometimes when it can be lighthearted, it can break the tension on occasion, and then that can be a positive. But generally, I think it disrupts the flow of what somebody is trying to say, or other people in the room trying to understand it. Because now you've got 2 or 3 sources coming at the same time. So I would say, personally, it's something I'd prefer to move away from. Just, I think as Danielle was saying, resist that urge to have that discussion and go, oh yes, but. Maybe afterwards, the coffee shop's more productive.
Okay. Another question? Frank?
For Danielle, on the content, if you see the person, the speaker, having a negative body language at the time you start the evaluation, like starting to close, shut up, do you change some way your message?
Usually when I give an evaluation, I'm so focused on trying to put all the sentences in the right order. I try to have some eye contact, and certainly smiling is important. In my experience, if you start with a positive, and that's what we do in general, with a positive comment, it opens up to the person to receive the actual feedback. And we know why we're here. We know why we are in an advanced club as well. We know that we want more than oh, you did a wonderful job. And certainly that's what we all strive to do here. If the person is not open, perhaps in the future what I would like to do is to approach that speaker again and try to decide exactly what were your expectations? How do you want to be helped? What could I provide to you that would help you improve the best? So perhaps there was a misunderstanding, and At the time, I may not be able to correct it, but I would certainly try in the future to do that.
Another
Brief
question?
comment, just on this point. Sometimes it's not about changing the content. Sometimes it's to do with the tone. And for me, tone isn't just your voice, it's your whole body tone. Sometimes, so you can open up, so maybe just change to a joke or something, and that can influence the person. Because you've already written your content. I don't know.
Let's move to
Oh,
another.
that was brilliant.
Let's move to another point now, and Fern.
Just something that Danielle said that I'd like to address. I think that when we all join Toastmasters, we learn to have that discussion. What is it that you're looking for with the speaker before they speak, not to go and revisit it after the evaluation. And that's something that I don't think that we do terribly well. I can't remember an evaluator coming to me and saying, what are you looking for from your evaluation of this speech tonight? And so don't you think that it would be better to have that discussion in advance rather than after?
Absolutely, I agree. I think it's a contract between the speaker and the evaluator. And the speaker will give the best speech that they can at the moment with the practice that they've done within their limitations. But they're making themselves vulnerable. They're opening up, and there are perhaps weaknesses that they know they have, but either they don't know how to address them, or they're not there yet. They're not prepared to address them just yet. So
Okay,
yes,
let's
and
get
that earlier discussion is useful.
Let's get a question from Shannon and then Michelle.
For me?
Yes, please.
Oh, thank you, Roman. I'll address that, my question I've been waiting to ask to Marilyn. Marilyn, if you had to give one piece of advice to someone listening to a speaker who, let's say, was extremely nervous, and yet that speaker was courageous enough to ask for feedback, what would be the advice to that evaluator, that one piece?
I think with the tone and the content, both my panelists sitting beside me are saying, be nice and make sure it's coming out so that it's to help and not be all critical. If you recognize the person's working so hard and you say, I see how hard you're working at that, and this might help you reach that goal of yours, because obviously the person speaking is working on it and is committed. If a person was on crutches, they have to use the crutches, and they could work their way into different levels, but it takes a while to get off the crutches.
Excellent metaphor. Michelle?
Oh, I just was curious, Louis, when you mentioned that you come from an area where sarcasm is used as a term of endearment. So we have other people in the room who also come from parts of the world where sarcasm is a term of endearment. Beautiful timing there. Your question. So I was just wondering if you would adjust the tone of your evaluation to reflect the speaker that you're evaluating. Should it be one of those sarcastic people in the room? Or would you not? Would you err on the side of
Normally,
needed?
if you have the opportunity, you've asked the person beforehand, you may be able to do that. But we tend to, I'm hearing a lot of speaker evaluator, and we forget the fact that there's a room full of people. An evaluation is not about 2 people. So we may have a tone that is appropriate for 2 people. You know me quite well, that's fine, but the other people in the room don't get that. So I think we got to remember, if you're not sure, normally err on the side of caution.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those questions. We'll have to hold that off for our discussion after the coffee shop. So let's conclude. I'd like to basically recall something from a couple of weeks ago, a couple of meetings ago. And that was a speech by Shannon. When she went out west on her trip to explore the effects of the tar sands on the native communities, is basically the theme of the speech, she ignored all the invitations by the oil industry to come and visit the offices and take a helicopter ride and view the environmental damage and the rehabilitation of the land. She ignored it because it wasn't what she was going out to see. She wanted to get the perspective of the native community and the effect of the damage being done. When she got there, she was educated by the native leader, listened, and heard a different message. That there was a reciprocity, a symbiotic relationship between the oil industry and the native communities. And eventually was able to be talked into taking that helicopter ride. Listening is loving. She heard that message from the native community and then was open to receive the communication from the oil industry. That speech had so many different topics and was going in so many different ways, but that one, that message for me is what left and impressed me with that speech. Is that we have the ability, if we listen deeper and dig down, to actually grab the essence of what the person is communicating, trying to say. And in being able to reflect that back as an evaluator is the magic that we're all seeking in order to transform ourselves into better speakers. So to conclude, I'd like to thank our panelists. You gave us a huge amount of information in 25 minutes. I love this idea of the code word balance. If you want the Dragon's Den evaluation, that's still around. Justin, I know you're waiting to get one. Boy, we can really give one here. But this might be a new code word, a new idea. Thank you for bringing that up. It's a balanced evaluation that makes listening lovely. Mr. Toastmaster.